the human heart is the strongest magnet on this earth.
If you're finding value in what you're watching, consider hitting the subscribe button and turning on the bell notification. Oh, and don't forget to drop a comment. I love hearing your thoughts and ideas. By the way, we have got a ton of other videos waiting for you. And if you are ready to level up your mindset, come hang out with us in our private Facebook group called Mindset for Business Success. Today we have with us Julie Murphy with over 2.5 decades of experience in the world of finance. Julie is one of Chicago's go-to experts for financial health and wealth management. Thank you so much for coming on our show, Julie.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to help more people.
That's the joy, right? When you're able to help someone is priceless. When we get into business, at times we have this phase that I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this. But when you start serving people and other human beings, you realize that they're not so much different than you are. And you start seeing them. Yeah, you start seeing them as a mirror and you're saying, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for me, but I'm doing it for all of us. Like we're all one.
I just produced my audiobook for my third book. And I was reminded that I say in there that we are all like an energy grid. If you're flying into a big city and you see all the streetlights, and they're all connected. If one of those goes out, just like if one of us humans are acting up or going out, it affects the entire grid because we're all energetically connected.
Yes, so true. And scientifically now that they're proving the quantum field is entangled, everything is one, basically.
Yep.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. The more you study this stuff, the more you realize how much oneness we have. And it removes the competition because then you realize that you're connected to this source of abundance and source of whatever you desire is there for your taking. As long as you follow the laws and you can improve the quality of what you call life.
Yes. Yeah. It's really fascinating. So I call that the divine feminine energy. We all have masculine and feminine energy. And the feminine is of the heart, where the masculine is of the mind and the ego. And we've all been taught that we need to compete and there's a win-lose and there's a right and a wrong. But that's duality and polarity. And that's actually what really needs to be removed from our society, because it's really, we have to start with our heart and then add our smarts, and the heart is the collaborative, it's allowing space, it's adapting, it's holding the space of potential so that you can rise up into it. And I just find that the more we can in tune with our hearts and the more we can, our hearts are the biggest magnet that we have. They proved, the organization Heart Math proved that the human heart is the strongest magnet on this earth. And until we start doing things from that place, that's why when you're passionate about something, everything seems to show up and everything seems to work out.
Yes.
It's because your passion's in there, your giggle's in there. I always tell everybody, well, what makes you giggle more? And people go, was that the right financial answer? I'm like, it is, because more money comes to you, the more you align with your giggle, which is your passion and your purpose.
Yeah, the joy. And the heart. And since even before I was even embarrassed to even mention love, masculine, because that's how I was brought up. You have to be tough. You have to be
hold that line,
a man, right? But there's nothing wrong with both sides, obviously. But to have, when you lead with heart, when you lead with spirit, that's the hard part. It actually gives a boost to your mind and your mindset. It's like adding, what's that fuel that you add to the car? Nitrous, I think. You add nitrous to your mind because it gives it the support. And you mentioned the feminine energy. I find it to be a lot more powerful when in combination of everything else, because like you said, you start seeing those serendipity and you start, even us meeting, there's a reason. Like I'm a believer.
Everything has reason and purpose. Everything.
Yeah, no, definitely. So can you explain the emotional wealth? Maybe you touched upon it already, but can you elaborate on it?
Yeah, so just explain a little bit how I wound up in my journey. I used to think that, I was trained that everything is left brain logical and the finance industry is linear. And it's like, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get ABC. And what I started to realize, though, there's this human component called the human heart that has emotions. And our emotions are energy in motion. If you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're scared, if you're anxious, you are contracting your nervous system, and then you can't manifest the life that you want to create. You can't bring in the money you want. You can't bring the love that you want because your emotions are vibrating. They now know what the megahertz are of every emotion that we have. But if you're in gratitude, joy, and happiness, you're vibrating at a much higher place. So we have to be extremely mindful of our thoughts, because those are vibrations, our words, those are vibrations, and the entire universe works on sound and vibration. So our words out of our mouth are actually very potent. And then our feelings. So those three things, if you are not vibrating at high emotional energy and frequency, then this is why you're having mixed results in your life of not getting the jobs that you want, not getting the money that you want, the raises you want, the bonuses, everything else. And what I started to realize is that, we work things out or we act them out, and we do it through our money, our health, and our relationships. And it all has to do with our emotions, which are energy in motion. And so when I first started realizing this, I had this one client who came to my office and she's, I already know I'm so far behind in my retirement planning. Just tell me the most efficient thing I can do with what I have so I can get as much as I can. She was 47 at the time. And so she came in, she had $33,000 of credit card debt, but she was super in shape. And I started digging. I'm like going, divorced, has a boss that she described just like her ex-husband, going, she's attracted the same person in different areas of her life. And she wasn't getting paid. She was managing a $2 billion portfolio for a non-for-profit, and she was getting paid $110,000 a year. Colleagues of the same value were making like $300,000 a year. And I'm like going, what's going on here? It's the emotions, right?
Yeah.
And
it's the self-image too.
So I got her on track that first year, and then she came in for her financial appointment the next year. She had gained like 30 pounds, but her credit card debt was down to $5,000. I was like, great job on your credit card debt, but what happened health-wise? This is where we work it out or we act it out through our health or our wealth, and also we do it through our relationships. And over time, we found the core. Every human being has a trauma or rejection before age 7. And that trauma or rejection is then our soul's growth through this lifetime is to work through that. And for her, it was abandonment. And so she was creating scenarios. She didn't realize that she was the creator of her life. We all are. And she was abandoned by an ex-husband, and she was being pushed away and abandoned by her boss and not having self-worth for what she was being paid. And once we really got to the core of what she really wanted to create in her life and started getting busy doing it, all of a sudden the weight came off. She doubled her income. She became a mom. She fostered some kids and adopted them. Everything then started working out because we addressed
flow state,
what that core issue is.
Yeah, she gained the flow state. No, that makes complete sense. Inner child, or that part of us is such an area that many of us may feel uncomfortable to even look there or become aware and become self-aware. That story is that it's super important to get comfortable, especially with self-awareness. That's the doorway to everything that you desire in this life. Is you need to get deep. You need to incorporate deep self-awareness, not just looking at yourself in the mirror. That's great, but actually the deep stuff, the uncomfortable stuff. And the more we go after it and embrace it with love compared to hide from it, ignore it, that just doesn't work. It adds fuel to the fire.
It absolutely does.
That's awesome. So can you share with us any common emotional barriers that you have noticed in business owners and how it impacted their financial decisions?
Absolutely. What I find, business owners tend to be the people who do the first step of the process that I've walked clients through for years really well. And that is dreaming the dream. Like they're the visionary going, okay, I see this and now I want to create it. So that's actually the most important part of the process. When you become an established business owner is when you start to get bored. It's when you start to, so if you've been in business for a while, sometimes you got to dream the dream again. And what's the next layer of the dream? So true. Right? And so I walk clients through this process I call the PACT system. And the first is picturing the life that you want to create, because that's your compelling reason for change. And so I find that's the most important part. But the second step of the process is we have to accept our reality. Because when we're first starting our businesses, I think we may make a few mistakes. We're human. Like, we don't do everything perfect because we're in uncharted turf. We're pioneers. We're doing things like, I was a woman in finance starting her own business. I would go into a room with 1,000 financial planners and there were 3 women. That's it when I started. And it was like, I don't really want a signed NFL football, nor do I want golf clubs, nor do, like, none of it was my identity. But I was being called to really address the humanity of finance, which was the emotions with our money. It wasn't just money management. So just kept doing what I was doing. So these hurdles that we have to go through as entrepreneurs is continuing to dream the dream. And when you go to that next layer, what you're doing is you're going deeper into your own stuff. So we have to realize that it's like peeling an onion. So I grew up, I have 11 brothers and sisters, and there was a lot of, this is how you behave, this is how you are. I was raised Irish Catholic, and you're not supposed to go out of lines. Like, my dad was confused why I was off in the business and off in the races, and I wasn't barefoot and pregnant at home. He was very traditional, and I love him, and I'm like his favorite, but he couldn't understand that. So how did it wire into me? The way it wired into me was my not enough button was always being pressed. Because I wasn't born a boy, somehow that wired into Julie, the little girl, that she was not enough. And so then I found that when I was building my business, is that I joined an industry full of men that said, oh, you're great, Jewel, but you're like a one-hit wonder. And it was like, oh, so my not enough button was constantly pressed. So typically I find with everybody and entrepreneurs looking at, as you go to this next layer of your business, you're going to either be pressing your not enough button, I don't feel worthy button, or I don't feel loved. And usually things come in those 3 categories. And we have to remember, if you are triggered on your journey, it is not about anybody who's triggering you. You, on a soul level, I believe, called these people into your life to trigger you so that you do your work. So if you can get to a place to where you are not reactive, but you can be the observer of the trigger, meaning that, because we're taught to fight back. I had one of my coaches tell me early on, Julie, the times the Fighting Irish are over. Stop fighting. Because I knew how to scrap and block and tackle and get out of the south side of Chicago and create a business. But it was built on the wrong fuel source. It was built on the fight energy as opposed to the pull and attraction energy that it's now created on. So to get to those next layers, you're going to have to not do it from the fuel source of your trauma or your rejection. You have to do it on the fuel source of your soul and your heart and your passion and desires. But that means you're going to have to work through your triggers in whatever they are as they come up on your journey.
Yeah. And those triggers, when they do come up for many people, they get upset in a way because they don't want them there. They want to grow. They want to be abundant. They want to have. But that realization, that was a really key point that you mentioned there, is that everything has a purpose. Everything in our universe has a need. There's a need for it. So when we have something like that shows up, all that is doing is trying to wake us up and say, wait a minute, listen, need to deal with this block. Don't run from it. Deal with this block so you can get to the next phase of your highest good. So next to it. And
go ahead. Sorry. Because we live in a holographic universe, which means that everything is a mirror to you. So whatever is going on in your inside is coming to you to mirror to you going, hey, here's your stuff. Hey, here's your stuff. Hey, here's your stuff. And it's just like that's why the stats are so high. If you get divorced once, you're highly statistically likely to get divorced again. Yeah. And the reason for that is because you attract the same bird with a different name. Because you haven't done your work, which is why you're divorced. Or Yeah, and you might be divorced because the other person didn't do their work and you are doing your work. That could also be reality, right?
The alignment.
But what I'm saying, correct. And so we have to, if we can really get to a place, so for entrepreneurs, it's like we're workhorses. That's one of the reasons why we're entrepreneurs, right? We are passionate about what we do and we jump all in. A lot of times there's a balance piece. And first of all, we never reach balance. It's about harmonizing your life, right? Because I think this work-life balance thing is like something we're trying to achieve that's never achievable, because do you ever really reach balance? I don't know anyone that, but it's harmonizing what's going on in your world, right? And so make sure you're taking care of what I call your fourfold body, and that's your physical body, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual self. It's like the four legs of the chair of your life. And so when these triggers happen, if you're eating good and having 3 green smoothies a week to keep that brain chemistry in alignment, and if you're physically working out at least 3-4 days a week, even if it's just walking your 10,000 steps, and making sure you're getting your spiritual, whatever that is to you, whether that could be walking out in nature, or that could be going to church or going to services somewhere, or it could be believing in the universe, whatever your thing is, whatever feeds your spiritual self. And so we have to take care of, when we're taking care of the physical, it helps the mental, it helps the emotional. So when these things come at us, we're not thrown for such a loop, because it is all parts of our being that we have to take care of.
And what we call it is the paradigm in the subconscious, for example, that you mentioned about finding the same situation again and again. It's a code that is written there, and we keep attracting it. And a lot of people don't realize that it's not the end of the story. When you're in it, you don't realize it. Like someone once said, I believe it's from one of the books, I can't remember who the author was, but saying if the fish don't know if they're in the water unless they jump out. I was there for many years. I had no idea there was any problem. I thought it was perfect, consciously speaking. But it's when you start digging, you realize the subconscious has a different story, a different paradigm, and that's dictating what I'm achieving in my life and what I'm experiencing. Like, for example, my mother, this specific person, whenever she shows up and whenever she leaves, she either gets hurt, she either gets sick, she either has some severe problem, and nobody could figure out what. And one day my sister goes that this person, whenever she comes, there's always a problem with her mother. There's always some kind of an injury, like she hurt her leg or foot, stomach, severe cramp. And we realize that she has this ill feeling, or she doesn't like her for some reason. Subconsciously, she doesn't. Yeah, emotionally. And the subconscious always wins, and it just controls the outcome because of that feeling. That's how powerful it is when we don't pay attention to it.
I tell people
doing that in so many areas of our life.
I tell people we have 2 operating systems, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And the subconscious mind in our amygdala, 97% of the time, that's what's responding to the world. And it's your autopilot. Because consciously, you wouldn't respond the way you respond sometimes. We go back on, ooh, why did I do that one?
Wish I did do that.
Running the engine. This in our back of our minds is running the engine. And when we can start to be aware of, that's huge. That's what I mean when you can become the observer of it and not the reactor. So if you find yourself reacting, take a step back and go, why am I reacting? Why am I reacting? Why am I reacting? To interrupt your patterning, because that's when you can start to become aware. And then you go, oh, that's why I did that. Oh, that's why that turned out. And then once you start to become aware, you can make pivotal shifts. But I'll tell you, your insides, when you start to shift things, you're going to get squirrely. You're going to be like, because it's almost like a baby learning how to walk again. Because you're now going to plug into the world in a different way. But it's more empowering. It keeps you standing in self-love and self-care. Because even if it's your child and you need to say, gosh, I need to hold boundaries with my child, and I just don't want them in my house. Like, you could do that. That could be why you chose as a soul to have a child like that, to play that role, so you finally step into your power. Or even stepping back and just asking, why am I triggered? Why am I triggered? Why am I triggered? I remember when I first was getting divorced, I was so angry, almost to the point of rage. And I'm like going, this is not who I am. So I literally for 3 months walked around the house and I was like, why am I? Because I know rage is just deep anger and anger is deep sadness. So I was walking around going, why am I sad? Why am I sad? Why am I sad? And one day it just finally cracked open because I was consciously trying to release something. And I sat on my bed and I sobbed for about a half an hour. I still to this day have no idea what the hell released from back here. All I know is that what is stuck causing us to react are feelings when we were a child that we stuffed down, we didn't feel to survive our childhood, whatever that was. So the only way to the other side is to get those emotions to come up and out and feel them, because then that releases the energy that is stuck in your cells. And you just have to feel them. So it could be that you're watching a movie and people are like, why are you crying at this movie? And you're going, I have no idea, because it's releasing. It's triggering something inside you. It's releasing. It's the only way to the other side of your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. No, great stuff that you're sharing today. I love it. So can you share how, or any practical steps, how entrepreneurs can integrate emotional well-being when it comes to financial planning and their overall strategies?
So again, we work things out or we act it out. We do it through our money, our health, or our relationships. And a lot of times entrepreneurs, they're risk takers, right? And so we tend to always live life on the edge on some level, right? And so it's about bringing people into your organization that can also help to support when you, so for example, I grew up in a household that didn't have good financial cash flow planning, right? My dad was an electrician. He was out of work often. Mom was an at-home mom, and they made it work somehow, some way with 12 kids. But where's my Achilles heel? Where did I learn how to do cash flow management? From that household. That's what's hardwired in my subconscious mind. So what did I do is I hire somebody to run my cash flows. And I've obviously learned over the years. So find out what your weaknesses are and hire the people to support that. Now, those people will trigger you because they're interrupting your patterning, but it's what will make your business very successful because it's helping you get out of your own way. So when I have a bookkeeper or my CFO that tells me like, this is the budget, this is what we're doing, nobody tells Julie what she can and cannot do. And so when a bookkeeper tells me I can or can't do something, I'm going, that triggers me instantly. And I can do whatever the heck I want. I'm Julie Murphy. It's so funny how it goes down this egoic path. And I've witnessed it for years. And now I know, okay, what do you want more? Yes. So it's about reverting back to what's your compelling reason for change? Which decision is going to support what it is that I truly want to be the creator of? And then that gets me out of the patterning because I focus on what I want to create because that's more exciting to me than getting in this emotional battle with the bookkeeper or the CFO. And everybody's got their thing, right? It could be an employee that you have that's running the job really well and you're like, I could do it just as good. It's funny how when we start to be successful, we then chop things off at the knees for all good reasons and justifications. But we don't realize that we're capping our expansion. So it's super important to watch where you're being triggered along the way and keep going back to the compelling reason to change. And that's picturing what it is that you want to create. And then your response to everything, does it support what you want to create or does it not? So you can start to get out of your emotional pattern. Because if you can have enough emotional bandwidth to take a step back and go, which one supports more of what I want to create? And then choose that option. And usually that's going to trigger an internal emotion in you because you're about to expand and you're about to release some patterning. You just got to let those emotions up and go feel your feelings. And don't take it out. Don't emotionally project it onto employees or spouses when you go home or whomever, people on the street that just ticked you off because, right? Because watch your emotional projections. It's incredible. And then just
in the small areas too.
Correct.
Small stuff. When someone changes the channel on you and that might be your pet peeve, then you can start small. Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, we choose distractions because we're so afraid to feel those feelings because the inner child in you is afraid to go back to those emotions.
Yes.
We will eat, we will drink alcohol, we will overwork out or not work out. What is your distraction? That's what I'm going to ask you to look inside, those who are listening, is what do you do to distract yourself? Because that's just distracting you from feeling your feelings. And instead of distracting yourself and going, what do I need to feel? What do I need to feel? What do I need to feel? And then that will start to open you up.
Love it. Love it, Julie. That's awesome. It was great having you on the show today. We usually keep our episodes 20 to 30 minutes, but I could talk about this stuff forever. So it's great having you on the show. Your energy is wonderful. Yeah. And I could see you're helping a lot of people. I wish you all the best. Continue to be there for people, because there is a tremendous need. We were running as those little children, the whole body, with those belief systems and the scarcity mindset that's embedded in our subconscious mind, and we're dealing with it when we don't realize there's an infinite abundance available to us. We just have to tap into it through our emotional side and our thoughts. So it's great to have you. Wishing you all the best. And thank you so much for coming on our show.
You're welcome. And if anyone needs any more support, they can join us at juliemurphy.com. We're here to support people. I've got all kinds of books, workbooks, online courses. It's all about us getting to a life that we love.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. Your opinions.